in case you guys didn't hear, and you can see my name's up there, I am Deborah Turner. I'm a volunteer, and I have been a volunteer with AARP, started in Kentucky since, so let's see, for 14 years now, since I retired at that point. And I also serve on national teams, helping people learn how to facilitate meetings. So it was fascinating for me to see you guys work today, because it absolutely looks like this everywhere, okay? People are all going through the same kinds of situations, trying to find people, trying to figure out how to reach people, how to be the club or the group that people want to be a part of. Because after COVID, and I'm sure you probably heard this already from the gentleman earlier, people had a chance to figure out a little bit more about what they wanted to do. And sometimes it's not a matter of joining things anymore. I wanted to talk a little bit today to start out about what AARP is. Because I know as I'm walking around handing out materials and whatever, I heard things like, I'm a member, and I'm really glad that you are, but we're just volunteers, and we're not trying to sell any kind of memberships. I don't go around selling insurance or anything. None of those things. I can do some of those things on my own, but that's not it. We are volunteers. And let's see if I can make this move. Okay. It's always exciting when the first slide works, and then you kind of know the rest of them will too. Okay. Don't know how many of you have heard about how AARP got started, all right? Has everybody seen this before? There's a commercial that comes on and it talks about AARP and Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, who was the founder, and her experience with finding a teacher who had worked with her living in a chicken coop because she could not find a place to live on the retirement and benefits that she had at the time. Dr. Andrus was, as you see here, always a volunteer. She started the Retired Teachers Association in California because of this teacher who did not have a place. And then once people found out you could get, maybe people could talk about the benefits that are necessary, what, the value to society for a teacher, people said, no, let's expand this. So the National Retirement Teachers Association was born. She created that, and then she founded afterwards AARP. In 1958, we're now more than 60 years old, which kind of makes us youngsters or middle age compared to the Lions Club. I understand, you predate even my parents, so that kind of makes us the junior people, but that's fine. And AARP, in terms of Dr. Andrus, her slogan, and I'm sure you'll recognize this one, but her slogan was to serve, not to be served. Does that sound very much like something that fits with what you're doing here? Okay. One thing I do want to say, I know we've got questions and answers scheduled for after I talk, but I don't mind answering questions in the interim, okay? So, if you think about something, I'm sure we've got some ways to, this is kind of informal, raise your hand, let me know, get your attention somewhere, and I'll try to answer. You can't see all of this, but I did want you to know a little bit more about where AARP is now. Even after COVID, we are back up to 38 million members, which this is just in the United States, 50 states and 3 territories. So we don't have the international reach that you guys do. We're just in the United States. We've got, and I'm one of those 60,000 volunteers who go out and talk and work on caregiving and fraud. I'm sure you've heard things about, fraud awareness and how do we do that, and helping people live their best life is really what AARP is about. But the other thing that we're really proud of are the e-advocates. A lot of times people say you can't get old people to use, and I can say this because I'm old, okay? 75, and my husband and I have been married for 55 years, okay? So I win from there. But, not that there's any kind of competition or anything, I can get the money later, but in any case. And so I feel like, I know, we're not old in terms of what we can do for the world. We can still add an awful lot, and I feel like I do every single day. And AARP is all about helping people who are 50 and older, and that is the membership group now. But things like fraud awareness and the Fraud Watch Network, those are available to anyone because fraud and scammers try to take the money of anybody. And what we found in terms of research and looking at who calls in on the Fraud Watch Network, for example, and I'm saying fraud, not frog, because sometimes people think I'm talking about Kermit, and I'm really not, but it's fraud, okay. And the Fraud Watch Network, the numbers of people who call in, we got an equal number of people who are over 60 and then under 40. And the difference is that the people who are under 40, because we're talking about people 22, 23, don't have as much money to lose. So you don't hear about them quite as much, and the seniors, when you lose some money, that's our finances, that's our plan. Somebody else may have to step in and help us survive. So all of our volunteer aspects of service and presentations and things are open to anyone. And I was going to say too that in terms of the millions of e-advocates, we're very, very pleased that after all of these years of lobbying, that the prescription changes have just come in, that now, I think you'll probably see the notices, they're starting to see them now, where insulin for people who are on Medicare is going to be $35 is the maximum that you have to pay, which is a major, major change. Medicare is going to be able to negotiate its prices, so that is going to help in terms of our pharmacy costs through our insurance. And I know that Medicare, our re-enrollment starts on October 15th and runs through December 7th. And so you're going to see some changes probably in the plans that are available to you. And I'm not talking about just AARP, I'm talking about across the board. I know that we've already gotten notices and our plans are going down. The cost this time is going to be less. I hope that's true for everyone, but we do know that there have been changes related to the prescription drugs, and that's in part because more than 4 million people contacted their senators, contacted Congress, and said, we need something done. So that's what AARP is all about. Now, volunteering today, right? AARP does research that I hope you guys will be able to use at some point, because you can actually go out, and this is one nice thing about one of many nice things about AARP. If you go to aarp.org and look up specific topics or look for research, you can actually find out what they have done. I mean, the budget is available, the research is there, information that you could then use to approach people, to remind them that volunteering has benefits other than just helping the community. It helps you. It helps you have a better quality of life. And so some of the research that's out there in terms of AARP, there is a changing definition for most people about volunteering. We all still seem to think, if you ask, that volunteering means that I'm giving of my time and for no pay. But 7 in 10 adults are still volunteering in one way or another. And that is a large number of people in the United States that are doing that. But the problem that we're starting to run into as an organization is that half of the people who are volunteering on an informal basis. They're looking at, say, neighborhoods, websites, and finding somebody who needs some money and donating some money. Or they're doing something by pet sitting for something. Or they're doing something else that qualifies as volunteering because they're not getting paid for it, and they're not necessarily related to that person. So they're not all coming to organizations like Lions Club to join because they figure they can do some things on their own. They're not coming to AARP, as much as they did. So we've got the concepts of giving back up here, widely understood, and 1 in 4 adults are still giving back. And this is where we're talking about formal volunteering. 18% of people are going through organizations to volunteer. 18% are going through informal organizations and informal methods. And that is where they're just going to the neighborhoods, figuring out who needs something, not saying I've got to have a Lions Club or AARP service banner to do it. But then 1/3 of the people are doing both things. So those are the people we want to get. Informal, yeah, but we want people who are doing both of them. If they're willing to do them both, that's fine. The research also said, and this was done in 2019 before COVID hit widely, okay? Said that organizations like AARP and others are going to have to tailor our recruitment, tailor our search, tailor our membership efforts to people in a broader age category, in thinking about volunteering differently. Understanding that the 21st century volunteer, if any of you've read the New Breed book, talks about how people think differently about volunteering. And there are new technology methods that are out there. We're using one here. I know a lot of people have already used Zoom and various things. During COVID, it expanded that possibility to the point where people now expect it. People expect to have hybrid meetings, as we're having here, where we've got people in person and we've got people who are going to see it online or going to see the tape afterwards or going to do something like that. Then we've also got to start thinking about, in terms of donations and fundraising, how do we tap in to that younger generation who keeps telling me, you don't use checks. Mom, my kids tell me, no checks, no checks. No charge cards, we aren't even worried about that. They want to hand me the phone and send me to, they wanted to send me to Cash App or something else. And so for us to be able to reach that younger group of people, we've got to make the ability to buy things, sell things, donate, be more user-friendly for them. And these were all implications that people saw in the research in 2019 before COVID. And COVID has just accelerated practically everything here. Okay, now, there are just a few resources that are available through AARP. But I have a question for you first. How old is AARP? Okay, I want to see one person raise their hand. I'm sorry, but the person I saw first. Thank you for answering. I know there were others over here. We had one prize. Okay. So, let's see if I can do it. And there's the answer. I had it float in because I was afraid I would hit it beforehand and then everybody would know. Okay, resources at AARP. What I have given you today, I think, is probably going to be something you could use for recruiting, intersection, thinking about what's going on. You see the page that says AARP Kentucky Resources? I don't have it on the screen, but I've just got it here. And AARP focuses its programs and activities on health, wealth, and self. Those are the three. And so you see here we've got health, wealth, and social connections. And these are all the URLs that if you go to the website, you can see what's going on in the communities in Kentucky and national. You can find out what the events are and see if there are ways that you want to tie in, if it fits in your community. And if you go to the back of the page, I think this is going to be even more important. A lot of times people think that AARP has a lot of staff somewhere and that there are offices all over the state. They're not. We've got one office, and that office is in Louisville, Kentucky. But all of the staff are listed here with their emails, as well as the names of the executive council. And I'm going to talk in a little bit about why this is probably important. Well, on the Kentucky fact sheet, that talks about the actual populations in Kentucky that are Medicare beneficiaries, retirement income, caregiving, older workers, and then on the back of it, because apparently you can see that, there are URLs tied to retirement issues, staying safe from scammers. These are some of the national pieces, finding a job and how to help in terms of looking for jobs, making communities more livable and age-friendly, and then staying ahead of the curve with AARP driver safety. Tax aid is also there, and connecting to fun events, AARP programs in person and online. Okay, this is additional ideas. I said, in AARP, we're still thinking about, and we sit around in tables like this in our executive council meetings and our local team meetings, trying to figure out what are we going to do? How do we plan? What are we going to accomplish in 2023 and going forward? But in terms of additional ideas, one of the reasons I said there's a board member on who's very important, and he is the contact for the Kentucky Retired Teachers Association. There is a Kentucky Retired Teachers Association chapter in every county in Kentucky. So there are ways that then you could, because if AARP, we keep a sponsorship and a partnership with them, that would be someplace that you may also find people who are interested. Another thing is AARP chapters are still active in Kentucky in a few areas. There are about 14 chapters right now that are still active. And so those are available. Then there is Create the Good, which I think was mentioned briefly. But Create the Good, is anyone familiar with that? Have you ever used that? Okay. Create the Good is an AARP program that allows you to put in your zip code and find out what volunteer opportunities are open. Anywhere in the country, anywhere in any of the 3 territories as well. But it also, if you register, and there's some instructions in this presentation about how to do that, when you register as a Lions Club group, you can, if you need volunteers for a specific program, put that information on, and then it goes to the AARP universe and anyone who has signed up for Create the Good. And that's actually how I found AARP to volunteer. I signed up for Create the Good, got an email saying these positions are available on a volunteer basis, because they will tell you whether you work from home or you work in the office or whatever. So you can do that for any project or activity. And then the people at AARP will actually get back to you, let you know what is, if your request is okay. Because I don't want to put you out there with a bunch of people that, well, you're recruiting for something that's a little unseemly. That is not what we're about. So they're going to make sure that the requests are legitimate. So Create the Good, AARP.org is the URL. Now, one of the staff at Kentucky suggested that you could hold a recruitment fair, but I'm not sure that, knowing what I've heard about your groups, that a recruitment fair is actually what you want. You may want to do more of what we do on a national level and in some of the states, and that is figure out what positions you need. Think about what work needs to be done. Who do you want? And then you take them to coffee. You do something else that kind of walks them through the process. You don't start out with hitting them with everything. You kind of encourage them as opposed to giving them everything in the world. So I think that might be a way for you to use some of the AARP information. Create the Good, this is in the presentation, and I was going to say that some of the benefits are, obviously, it's free. Free is good, most times. It's easy to use. You can post big projects. Some of the projects I've seen, people needed someone to work on flood control and getting sandbags in because there was an issue related, water's getting ready to come, and you can put that in. It can turn up very quickly. And they got enough people to come down to the river and do sandbags before the flood came. As I mentioned, Create the Good team reviews what goes on. And they also send them not just to the AARP network, but there's a network called allforgood.org, and it goes there as well. So people who are signed up for either one of those will get that information and pass it along. And all you've got to do is just register and create your account. I couldn't leave without some kind of just a general statement about volunteering. And this one is from Martin Luther King, Jr. It's not one we see all the time. I'm going to read it, but I know you can see this, okay? Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. So, thank you all very much. And I guess if we've got questions.
On behalf of the Lions of Kentucky, it's a small token of our appreciation.
Oh.
It will, I don't pay for gas, way here and back at
Oh.
least.
Well, that's another nice thing about AARP when you volunteer. You get mileage reimbursement. So give this money back to wherever you need to.
Thank you so much.
Okay? It was my pleasure to be here. Okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deborah, for that presentation. You know, it's funny because it really references Lion Carl's about, you know, what can a Lions Club do to look more like the community it serves. Funnily enough, I heard you on a podcast several months back, and this is a woman that, you know, Kentucky Lions you hear from. So I'm glad we were able to make that happen. Hope you all got something out of that presentation. I sure did.
Somebody sign her up for life.
And so today the purpose was to rejuvenate our existing Lions clubs with the strong desire to add members through finding out new ways to partner with existing volunteer organizations and take a good, long, hard look in the mirror and see maybe what we're doing wrong, but how we can improve, right? We want to increase our service footprint in the community. Deborah, now that you've had a minute to, you know, relax your voice or anything, do you have any questions from the audience for Deborah?
I don't know that there are any other questions. I need to get out of the way of the camera. But I was just saying, and I think most of you probably heard, I appreciate the offer of joining the Lions Club. However, I am so busy already, I really don't have time, and my kids would kill me if I said yes to one more thing. Even though they both tend to do exactly the same thing. I don't know why that is. Okay? No questions or anything. Okay, great. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.